pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, everybody. We take a look at the agenda here. Did anybody have any changes? If not, we would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as printed.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Robin, second by Becky to approve the agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, state no. The agenda is approved. Guests and open forum. Is there anybody here tonight to speak to council? All right, we will move on to number 6, committee reports, presentations, awards. And we're starting off with the Budget and Finance Committee.
So Budget and Finance, we met on November 20th in a shortened meeting. Let's see, we talked just kind of some updates on the kind of where the tax capacity as the numbers start to come into the county there, kind of as that gets more firmed up. So just updates there, no real big shifts there. We talked a little bit about the new paid family leave, kind of some like there's a piece in there about minimum wage, some pieces in there. So we kind of talked about that there, and some actions will be taken to of course make sure we're in compliance there. Other 26 tax items, and then just briefly went through the numbers and BCC membership update. So that's about it.
All right, sounds good. Any questions for Rick? All right, Planning Commission?
Planning Commission, we met Monday the 24th, right before Thanksgiving. We had a public hearing for an interim use permit, which is an item we have for tonight for the Von Hansen Snacks. We also had another public hearing, which was a setback variance for Angel's Construction. That I believe was on our...
Should be on there.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did interviews we have an open planning commission seat, which starts for 1/1/26. Ron will be stepping down, and we did the interviews. We had 3 candidates apply, did the interviews, and on our consent agenda tonight was the recommendation for Candace Hansen to fill that spot. Oh, and I also forgot. We had, so Luann Drive development, we did have we had a presentation on a
Preliminary.
very preliminary, just a proposal idea that a group was pitching for kind of the whole property back there. So interesting.
I was gonna bring that and I forgot.
So that was so it was a long meeting, but that was what we had.
All right, any questions for Rick on planning? Not, we'll move on to Joint Planning Board.
Joint planning met last Tuesday, the 25th. We heard a minor boundary subdivision adjustment, and we got some very gripping reading material on their Section 16 zoning ordinance updates.
Gripping, huh?
Gripping.
Gripping. I like that.
We'll wait for the report.
Any questions on the gripping reading? All right, we'll move on to public hearings. Number 7, vacation of drainage and utility easements, LTTM properties, and E&E edition. Austin.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So tonight's agenda item is the proposed vacation of multiple drainage and utility easements located between 2 adjacent parcels that are under common ownership, which is LTTM Properties, LLC. The city received a request from LTTM Properties submitted through the owner, John Tennyson, to vacate portions of the shared easements along the interior property line. Purpose of the request is to allow a lot combination. Once the 2 parcels are merged into a single lot, the interior easements won't be needed anymore. On November 18th, the City Council adopted Resolution 2594 calling for a public hearing pursuant to Minnesota Statute 412.851. The proper mailing, posting, and publication requirements were met. No objections or comments were received prior to tonight's meeting or tonight's public hearing. The easements proposed to be vacated are legally described and illustrated in Exhibit 1 of the resolution. Staff and engineering review confirm that the vacation does not impact utility access or drainage patterns outside the area of the easements. Staff did contact all utility providers and confirm that no facilities exist within the easements proposed for vacation. And then after the parcels are combined, any new or adjusted easements necessary to serve the property would be done through our standard permitting process. So with that, I'd be looking for a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 25-102, a resolution vacating multiple drainage and utility easements in the LTTM properties and E&E addition plats.
All right, so we'll open the public hearing at 5:06. I don't know if I did that, probably didn't. Is there anybody that would like to speak about this issue at this time? All right, nobody? Entertain a motion then to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
We have a motion by Rick and a second by Robin. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, state no. The motion approves, so we close the public hearing also at 5:06. And then we have a motion, or looking for a motion on Resolution 25-102, vacating the multiple drainage and utility easements, unless anybody has any questions for Austin.
I'll make a motion.
No second.
Okay, we have a motion by Becky, second by Rick for Resolution 25-102. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, state no. That motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Austin. All right, moving on to number 8, Board Committee and Consultant Reports. Domestic Filter Building HVAC Replacement. Mr. Lisson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight I have an RCA and resolution for you for the domestic filter building HVAC MAU 6 replacement. We did get a couple proposals for this replacement project, McDowell Company and SCR. McDowell came in at a price of $59,651. SCR came in at $50,550. Give you a little background on that. This is the original makeup air unit from the 2008 expansion. We do expect a 15-year life cycle out of that kind of unit. It's gotten 17 years. Technically got 16. It's not working currently. So we did have SCR out in 2024 to take a look at it. They needed a part. They reached out to Resner, the manufacturer of the existing unit. They had declared the unit obsolete and the part was no longer available. So the building is currently being heated by the two back gas-fired hanging units that are in there. So we do have heat in the building. But that is technically the backup heat, so we'd like to replace the primary heat source and make sure we don't freeze in the winter. Both bids did include similar things, including removal and disposal of the existing unit, removal of the old curb and a new curb for the new unit, the crane cost to get the old unit off the roof and new one on. We're doing some damper repair work, so the current dampers, to access them for maintenance, the access panel is over the top of one of the filter tanks, so you either work over a empty tank or a tank full of water. So not ideal. As part of this project, they'll just switch that the other way and you can stand on the deck and work at it just from regular standing height. So that'll be included in this. The gas piping disconnects and reconnects, and then the unit will be connected to the HVAC control system, so staff will be able to monitor it from that system, see alarms, and deal with things if it fails. So nice upgrade to that piece of equipment. This replacement project was discussed with our Public Works Committee, and the committee did recommend it to come to council for consideration. We did have money budgeted in our domestic CIP for this for 2025. We budgeted $35,000, which is less than what both proposals were. I did check with finance before bringing this to council, and that fund does have significant money in it to cover this cost. So with that, tonight I can stand for any questions. Otherwise, I would look for a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 2598, approving the replacement of the domestic filter building MAU number 6 by SCR for a price not to exceed $55,605, which is the bid price plus a 10% contingency.
All right, any questions for Chris?
Do we know why so if we originally were thinking it was gonna be around 35 and they come in at 50, 50 and 59, do we know why they were so much more?
Just the numbers we had estimated based on some of our past replacements, kind of our best guess, and this unit just came back higher than our best guess, so.
All right. Well, with the weather outside, it's probably good to have a primary and backup
It is
heat.
good, especially in wet buildings, yep.
Yeah,
Freezing is never a good thing for piping.
I would think not.
Do you know when they were, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, no?
Do you know when they would, yeah, assuming we'd go forward this tonight, when they would they begin pretty quick, or would this be a spring project, or how long till they?
I would guess it would be, I would guess we'd probably get the unit in a month or so. That's been about the time frame we did the Aeon unit, it took them about a month to get it and then do the install, so. And they will install in the middle of winter, so. Unfortunately for them, fortunately for us, so, but. We'll know, once we give them if it's approved, then we would let them know and we can get a more firm time frame. Yep.
Great. That's all I got. Okay, any other questions? If not, does someone want to move approval of resolution 2598 for the domestic filter building, MAU 6, at a price not to exceed 55,605?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Robin, a second by Mike. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, state no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, wastewater admin office rooftop unit replacement. Mr. Zwilling.
Yeah.
Weeks in a row here, holy cow.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight before you, I have RCA and Resolution 2597 for your consideration. The rooftop unit on the wastewater admin building is original from 2008. Service life, as we know, is 15 years, and it is on its 17th year. Decision was made to replace to avoid expensive repairs as it is outlived its service life. Staff received 2 quotes for the replacement. They were included in the packet. The first one from SCR bid came in at $22,850. The McDowell Company came in at $16,960. The replacement was discussed with the Public Works Committee, and the committee approved to go on council for consideration. I am looking for a motion and a second approving Resolution 2597, approving the rooftop unit on the wastewater admin building to be completed by McDowell for a price not to exceed $18,656, which is a bid price plus a 10% contingency. With that, I will stand with any questions.
All right. Any questions for Troy? Oh, you were within $40 on that one. That's pretty impressive. That's pretty close. That's pretty good. All right. Well, if there's no questions, does someone want to move approval of Resolution 2597 to replace the wastewater admin building HVAC at a price not to exceed $18,656?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Robin, seconded by Mike. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, state no. That motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Austin's coming back up for a side yard setback for lean-to structure variance on Bank Street.
That is correct. Thank you, Mayor and Council. So tonight's agenda item is a variance request for 14195 Bank Street submitted by Vern Johnson, who's the applicant, on behalf of Angels Construction, who's the owner. Request is for a variance to the 20-foot side yard setback in the commercial corridor zoning district to allow construction of a 20-foot wide lean-to structure on the east side of the building facing the funeral home. The existing building sits approximately 33 feet from the east property line. The proposed lean-to would reduce the setback to roughly 13 feet, an encroachment of around 7 to 10 feet, depending on the measurement point. The addition provides covered storage for rental equipment, which is for the existing business that they run. Planning Commission held a public hearing on November 24th and recommended approval with conditions. All procedural requirements under UDO section 1.11 section J have been met with this request. There were no public comments that were received before this meeting. Planning Commission did decide to add one additional condition, and that is that the city engineer review the stormwater impacts related to the lean-to prior to the actual issuance of a building permit. So findings that support the variance include it has a unique lot constraint that limit expansion while maintaining the site's ability to have site circulation. The proposed structure is compatible with existing commercial light industrial character in that corridor. The improvement supports the existing business operations without creating new off-site impacts, and there are no impacts to easements, utilities, or public safety. Staff reviewed the prior conditional use permit for outdoor storage that was granted on the site and confirmed that no CUP conditions are affected. Tonight's action is solely related to that variance request tonight. The request meets all required statutory and UDO variance criteria, including practical difficulties, lot-specific constraints, consistency within that commercial corridor district, and alignment within the Becker 2040 comprehensive plan. So with that, I'd be looking for a motion in a second to adopt resolution 25106, approving the variance to the side yard setback requirement in the commercial corridor zoning district for a lean-to structure at 14195 Bank Street. I can stand with any questions.
All right, anybody have any questions for Austin? All right, anybody like to make a motion to adopt resolution 25106?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 25106, the setback variance.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mike, a second by Rick. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, state no. That motion carries. Thank you, Austin, and I think you're up again.
I am. So this agenda item is a request to approve an interim use permit for food production in the commercial corridor zoning district at 14195 Bank Street for Von Hansen's or LTTM properties. The applicant for this was John Tennyson on behalf of LTTM properties. They submitted a request for an IUP within that existing building that they have. Planning Commission held a public hearing and recommended approval of the interim use permit on November 24th. There were no written or verbal objections or comments that we received. The resolution includes conditions of approval as written in the resolution and reviewed by Planning Commission. This business is already operating at the 12911 parcel and is expanding onto the 12912 parcel through construction of a new production building. Lot combo has been applied for by Mr. Tennyson as part of this project, since the new building would cross lot lines and would be unable to meet setbacks in that district in the current lot configuration. Staff finds that the request is consistent with the UDO's interim use criteria, specifically section 1.13, and in alignment with the city's comprehensive plan, which supports reinvestment and commercial and light production activities along the First Street corridor. So with that, I'd be looking for a motion a second to adopt resolution 25107, a resolution approving of an interim use permit for food production in the commercial corridor district at 12911 as well as 12912 First Street. Thank you.
All right. Anybody have any questions for Austin on this one? Anybody have any questions about anything?
Today.
Nobody has any questions. Have you personally tried the pretzels?
I have. I like them.
I do too.
I'm personally a fan.
All right, I would say I'm a fan too. That's all good. All right. Well, if there's no other questions, anybody want to move approval of resolution 25107 for the IUP on First Street?
I'll make that motion for resolution 25107.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mike, second by Becky. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, state no. The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're up to the Axon early contract renewal. Chief Lindblom.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, Council. Thanks for having me tonight. Stand before you tonight to have a discussion about early renewal for our Axon contract. As you're probably aware, Axon Enterprises is a company that the police department deals with a lot. They handle our high visibility items include our body worn cameras, tasers, squad cameras, and then evidence.com, which is where all of our digital evidence is stored from those devices and from some, the citizens that submit electronic data to us. As part of this, we're in a 5-year contract with Axon, which was signed in 2023. Part of their process is halfway through the contract, they do what they call a TAP refresh, which is basically where they issue us new body cameras. Best way to describe it is that we don't own the body cameras, we're leasing them through them under this contract and subscription. Nice part about that is they maintain them, they keep them up to date, they update firmware, and every 2.5 years we get brand new ones sent to us. So it's one less thing kind of to worry about as an ownership level. As part of that renewal process, I looked back at our current contract that we had to just verify that everything looks okay moving forward. And additionally, with the discussions about adding the sergeant role next year, we had to take a look at kind of what we had for licensing and things like that. And in that process, we identified that there was an area where we could make a little improvement on our contract. So I had some discussions with Axon about that. And essentially, what they'd be willing to do is do a mid-year contract update. And what that does for us for a benefit is it aligns with the current software that we utilize within the program. For instance, for the last few years, we've been paying for an AI redaction software, which redacts portions of videos. I think it's about $6,000, and that is something we've used like 2 times. So we got to look at whether or not we want to pay for that if it's not something we'd utilize. So we had took a look at that, and then in turn said, hey, was there any products within the Axon suite that we would use more that we could kind of offset? So that addition would be what we call auto transcription. This isn't an AI thing. It's not a. You've maybe have seen the Axon's pushing a product called Draft One, which AI writes reports based on body cameras. It's not that. This is just a transcription software. So basically what it'll do is it'll allow the officers to transcribe what's on their body camera. The biggest benefit here is going to serve in our records department for Kristen. She's right now listens and hand types all of the body worn camera footage. She's really good at it. She enjoys doing it, but it can be a lot of work. So this way she'll be able to auto transcribe all of those initially. She doesn't hit the button and send it by any means. She still has to listen to the entire body worn camera footage that she's transcribing, but she doesn't have to sit and type. So it is a big time saver. She's just basically editing little things that get missed, but she has trialed it already through a free version that they gave us, and it's been very productive for her to have that. So that would allow her to use it and officers as well. As you know, we write a lot of police reports, so right now, if they're reviewing body worn camera for a call for service, they have to look back at their body camera to kind of see what people said and did. With the transcription, they can transcribe it to a written form and then utilize that kind of like you would if you're doing a word search, right? So they remembered somebody saying something about a red truck in the middle of this domestic they were on, but instead of having to go through the video to try to find a listen about that, they can use that then to search red truck, bring it to that section of the transcription, and kind of increases some of that efficiency. So that was part of the arrangement. And then additionally, just cleans up a little bit. Our contract right now had 2 user licenses that were purchased separately. So they were on a whole separate billing cycle. It doesn't change anything, but it brings it all to one package. And then the other benefit would be trying to grab a hold of what the costs are now compared to what the costs will be in 2027 when we renew. At the end of the day, this is pushing a bucket, right? Because we all know in 2027 when we renew, it's going to be whatever it is. But Axon typically assumes about a 13% increase in the cost for their plan. On the screen, you can see that typically list prices for 10-user department in 2022 was $95,000 for a 5-year contract, and you can see for 2025 it's $136,000. So those are just the cost of doing business. Axon's maintain a pretty high level of improvement with their software, and I think that it's served us really well. So those costs, although are unfortunate that we have to take them on every time, they do provide a really good product for us. That being said, ultimately what I'd like to do is enter into a early contract renewal with Axon. They provided us a quote which would lock in pricing that for the 2025 rate right now. With 2026 budget already being set, I explained that, it's already in the CIP for what we pay right now. And what they did is they were willing to allow us to maintain our 2026 payment the same as last year's, or that we have identified in the CIP. So there'll be no change. But then they put that on the back end. So for the last few years of that contract till 2030, they kind of added in that excess there. So nice next year, because we don't have to change anything. CIP the year after that, then we'll just reflect that new cost. Total cost for the 5-year plan was approximately $46,000 in difference. But that also includes an additional license, and then, like I said, cleaning up some of that back end, and just general 13% increase with Axon. As of today, we actually identified that we have a license for our IT department with Rob that isn't being utilized, so I would just request that they remove that. So the amount that we're looking at for a 5-year contract listed here was $154,343.35. That would actually go down slightly once we have them remove that to benefit us, because there's just, again, a license there that just isn't getting utilized, so why pay for it if we're not using it? I would be happy to have any questions if we have those.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
It does not affect this contract at all. but
Okay.
You made the comment about you get new body cameras every 2.5 years or something.
Yes.
If you get a body camera that's damaged or destroyed during service or during a call, is that covered under this?
Yep, just give us a new one.
So it
We just
doesn't-
had that, yeah, we had an officer that ripped their power button off. It got stuck in a seatbelt piece. And so we called them, and a couple days later, it came in a box, and they didn't even have us send back the old one. They just send us a new one right back. So there's, like I said, they've been good to work with. It's one of those things where it is a higher cost option potentially, with body cameras and all the evidentiary stuff with the vehicle squad cameras and things like that. But their product is really good, and they do keep up with it really well. So it kind of makes our lives a little bit more easy on the back end. And this was discussed via email with police committee. They were supportive of that, and kind of recognized the cost savings and trying to lock in now as opposed to 2027.
All right. Any other questions for Chief? If not, we are looking for a motion on Resolution 25-104, allowing Chief to enter into the early renewal contract with Axon.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Robin, second by Mike. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, state no. That motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, administrator and staff reports. Traffic Safety Vehicle Joint Powers Agreement. Chief's up again.
I am. This one's kind of fun. So the state of Minnesota awarded a bunch of grants after Richfield created what they call the traffic safety vehicle. And the biggest part about this is trying to have a vehicle available to agencies to use for combating our common Towards Zero Death campaign items, which is going to be your speed, seatbelts, DUI, and distracted driving. What they found, which should surprise nobody, is that when I'm driving in my police car, people are not, doing the same behaviors that they are when we're not around. So, Richfield started this by creating a traffic safety vehicle. It was like a lifted Ford pickup truck. It had extra cameras looking out the side view mirrors, trying to look for people that are texting and driving. And it was very effective. So the state of Minnesota said, hey, if this is working well, let's put some money out there. And the city of Elk River applied for that grant and was awarded a traffic safety vehicle. So we're excited about that, because part of that grant includes joint powers with other agencies in the county to be able to use that vehicle for different traffic enforcement events. So that being said, Elk River has a joint powers agreement for use of this vehicle that they got through the state grant. The Elk River Police Department owns it. They maintain it. They will service it and do all of that. What we need to be able to cover for the city of Becker, if we're using the vehicle, is insurance coverage at the time that we're utilizing it. Make sure it's full of gas, and if it's dirty, give it a clean wash before we bring it back. So this has been discussed with legal, and they didn't have any conflicts with any of that. And then additionally, we did reach out to the league to verify that insurance coverages were okay for that when we're using it, and there were no issues there as well. So that being said, just kind of looking to move forward with that joint powers agreement with the city of Elk River. I'm just gonna share a couple photos here.
See, can we see what it looks
Yep,
like?
so this
So I
is
know.
the,
Doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose?
Nope, I need to
no,
know what this looks like.
that's all right. They've already done some media with it already in Elk River, the newspaper and Facebook and stuff, because they do want people to be aware that we have access to this as well. So effectively, what would happen is, if one of our officers wants to go and work a speed shift or a distracted driving shift through the TZD program, they could request the traffic safety vehicle, they'd pick it up in Elk River, and then they can utilize it for that day and shift and bring it back. And the hopes is that, having something like that around, you're gonna catch those violators a little bit easier. It's pretty neat. It's set up for a second person so that the driver, obviously, we don't wanna be as, focused on all the stuff going on, so it's set up for a second person to run a bunch of the controls, to keep eyes open for violators. It's got some extra camera equipment to try to catch those things and whatnot. So I think it'll be a really good resource to have access to, and I look forward to hopefully being able to utilize that. Our guys are pretty good about doing those TZD shifts, working those extra shifts to combat some of those driving behaviors. So this will be a good asset for that. That being said, just looking for a motion in a second to allow me to enter into that joint powers agreement for the traffic safety vehicle with the city of Elk River.
Do you know how many other cities have a joint powers agreement with them?
Yep, so the initial one with Richfield was a joint power, like East Hennepin, so there were like 10 or 12 agencies included in that one that were all sharing the one vehicle. I believe that the grant was, I think, 6 more vehicles statewide that was issued out, and then it depends on how many agencies are included in that grant,
So
so.
it isn't necessarily agencies in Sherburne County that will be,
This one's specific to this one, the joint powers agreement with Elk River is only for Sherburne County agencies. So it would be, Big Lake approved the joint powers agreement, it's us and then Sherburne County and Elk River. So that's the only people who they're offering it to, and who, when they wrote the grant, they included us in that, so. It won't be used by Wright, or,
Cloud
St. Cloud's not gonna call us to get it, it'd just be our Sherburne County agencies. I think you stretch it a little thin then, cause like Richfield's, when theirs was
That's what I
out, they
was
had
saying.
so many
That's-
agencies
yeah.
trying to borrow it, it was trying to barter to get a time. And especially when those TZD windows are on, it's such a limited, we have 2 weeks of speed enforcement, and, it's only so many days, so. I think it works nice that they limited it to just Sherburne, and that should give us more of an opportunity to utilize it when we can.
All right, any other questions for Chief? Not, someone want to motion approval of resolution 25-103 to enter into the joint powers agreement.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
All right, we had a motion by Rick. Who got it? Becky was the second.
I have a voice this time, let me use it.
All right, it's only fair. Motion by Rick, seconded by Becky. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, state no. Motion carries. Thank you.
For your time tonight.
Good luck. Now everybody's gotta go out and buy a silver F-150,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, do we get to know when we're gonna have it?
I'll give police committee a heads up.
All right. Mr.
See me
Sin.
driving at the 10 and 2, then you'll know.
Exactly.
White knuckles.
All right. Industrial property purchase from James D. Properties. Mr. Sanders has a resolution for us.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Before you tonight, we've talked about this a little bit in meetings past. So this is a purchase for that 1.41 acre property owned by Jim Hughesby that's just west of the Becker Furniture World warehouse in the industrial park. The previous agreements that we had with Mr. Hughesby, there was, years ago, there was some expansion potential for the furniture warehouse. That never moved forward, so there was a couple lots involved in that. We did have a right to repurchase on this lot, which was told to allow a buyer to come in and purchase the property. That interested party decided to go a different route. So Mr. Hughesby asked if the city was interested in it. We had thrown out a contingent offer of $45,000 pending approval from council, which we've discussed previously, and Mr. Hughesby agreed to that. I think for he felt that the city was in a better position to market it than he was, and because of that, that price is a pretty good price for land. Our lots ranged with our recent appraisal anywhere from $120 to $154. And so $1.20 was the Liberty Lane property on the corner of Highway 10. And this is 73 cents a square foot versus those. So it's still a pretty good deal. One thing we did talk to Mr. Hughesby about after we discussed it with council last time is that when we sell the property, we would recoup any staff time and other costs just to recoup those fees for whoever the buyer is. And he understood that was still okay with the price. He didn't have an issue with that. The property does contain stormwater, which we talked about last time, a pond, a pipe, an outfall, and which serves Becker Furniture World Warehouse to the east. It also has an emergency overflow. So any future marketing of the property that we did would identify those so that people are eyes open of what's existing on the site. We did talk to engineering about that. It can be used partly for stormwater on the site, so there's still capacity in that to serve that as well. Any future maintenance, things like that would be talked about with any buyers of the property, interested buyers. The draft purchase agreement that's in the packet was reviewed by both Mr. Hughesby and by legal, so they've given their blessing on that. And for that, we're seeking a motion in a second. Oh, and I should note that the sale price of $45,000 will come from the city's land purchase account, so which has adequate reserves to pay for the land transaction. So we'd be seeking a motion in a second, adopting resolution 25-100 to purchase that property from Mr. Hughesby. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Do you have any prospects for it?
We've had a number of people recently reach out that need smaller properties. I anticipate that we'll be able to, I can't say when we'll get it out, but we have had a number of interested parties. I don't think we'll have an issue getting it to somebody. So, and that kind of goes back to what we're working on some of the other fronts too, to get more properties of smaller size in the industrial park, because we do need them. We get calls fairly frequently.
All right. Any other questions for Jacob? Does anybody want to move approval of resolution 25-100 to approve the purchase of the property described as Lot 1, Block 1?
Make a motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Robin, second by Rick. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, state no. That motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Susan, you're up. You got a couple in a row here, huh? All right.
Evening, Mayor and Council. First thing I have today is the 2026 fee schedule proposed changes. At the end of every year, we recommend changes for this fee schedule for your consideration. The items we have are the licensing related fees under item A, which are the state statute only allows for cannabis registration, so that would be the first change we have on there. And that's, we remove the cannabis license fee. Under B, we administrative citation fees. All code violations will fall under the same fee schedule rather than list each violation. The exceptions that have not changed are the flat fee, no matter the number of violations. Under C, the miscellaneous fees, we removed the towing fee and renamed the fee vehicle impound release fee to better title what the charge is for. Under D, the property related fees, parkland dedication fees are now addressed in the UDO, and the SSTS permits are now administered by Sherburne County, which was done earlier this year. And under E, the utility-related fees, meter fees were increased to better reflect current costs. Rates have been changed to reflect the preliminary 2026 approved budget. The snowplow rates increased to better reflect cost. Equipment list was updated for current prices, current pieces available for fee. And then there's another change that was not in there, and that is on the yard waste site cards. The county has changed it now to allow 2 cards per household instead of 1. And then I don't know if there's any other changes or any other questions at all?
Anybody have any questions on the fee schedule for 2026?
There is no motion for this. This is just for discussion.
We're not much of a discussion group tonight, so sounds like we're good with it. All right, we can move on to the next item then for the call for the public hearing.
All right, and that's just according to Minnesota state statute, city fee schedules must be updated by ordinance, and following past practices, a public hearing is requested. So I'm just looking for a motion and a second to call for a public hearing at our next meeting on December 16th at approximately 5 p.m. to consider changes to Chapter 2, Section 2.19, addressing the city fee schedule.
All right, so Susan is asking us to call for a public hearing on the 16th. Would anybody like to make that motion to do so?
Make the motion.
A second?
We have a motion by Becky, a second by Rick. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, state no. That motion carries.
All right, thank you.
Susan. Greg has the consent agenda.
Mayor Kobinger, City Council members, items for adoption, approval, or review on tonight's consent agenda include the revised hiring and termination report, payment of the bills, the minutes of the November 18th City Council meeting, the minutes of the November 18th Executive meeting, the Fire Board and Budget and Finance Committee meeting minutes, Resolution 25-101 accepting a $3,000 donation from the Becker Lions for a new library sign, the 2026 tobacco license renewals, the revised 2026 massage establishment business and massage therapist license renewals. Resolution 25-105 appointing Candace Hanson to the Planning Commission. Payment of invoice number 659064 in the amount of $41,225 to McDowell Company for the 2025 library area AHU and ACCU replacement. The balance on the contract is $92,836. And I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions for Greg on the consent agenda? All right, anybody want to move approval of the consent agenda?
Second?
We have a motion by Rick, second by Robin. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, state no. Consent agenda is carried. We have some anniversary announcements. Shar Reed, 8 years of service at golf. Mary Simpler, 7 years of service at the community center. Julie Krenz, 4 years of full-time service at the community center and looks like 18 years since she started part-time. Jackson Fluke, same thing, 3 years full-time and 5 years if you consider his part-time at golf. And Ian Holmes, 7 years. So thank you to all of those employees. Congratulations. We can appreciate all your work that you give to us. And we'll call for a recess until 6 o'clock when we can start our truth in taxation. So we'll stand in recess until 6 p.m. Anybody have a decent black pen I can use to sign a bunch of stuff? Because mine's.
I think in my purse.
Yeah, we just got these a couple of years ago. I don't think they're very good, but we got them.
Back. Oop, microphone's back. All right, we're back from recess to have our truth and taxation meeting, turning it over to Mr. Ebensteiner.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm assuming that you saved all your questions for the truth and taxation presentation, so I'm a little nervous, but that's okay. Questions are good. All right. Let me, I'll share what I got. I think Tony's kind of moving some stuff around. There we go. So here we are. I'll just kind of touch on the agenda. So this is kind of the culmination of the year's worth of work, starting in May, and kind of the final presentation. We'll field any questions from council and or residents, take any public comments, and then look for adoption of the 26 budget and levy from there. So I don't know, do we want to open a public hearing on the front end, or do we wait?
We certainly can do it now.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll open the truth and taxation public hearing at 6:01.
All right, thank you. So I'll have a presentation to start out with, can answer any questions, and then we can open it for the public, and then we'll look at the related resolutions. All right, so really the purpose is to create a map showing how the city will collect and use resources to deliver services. So, you know, residents really determine where the city officials and leaders are focusing their resources. The council really is providing that direction. And then as staff, we are, you know, understanding those expectations and executing on a day-to-day basis to really provide those core services that residents expect. So the timeline on the budget process, we started back in May and June, updating some of the capital summaries, budget worksheets, distributed out to staff. We do use our financial system, has a really good budget tool where we can input data as finance staff and then send it out to users. They can review data, analytics, year to year, and then provide their feedback. So July through September had a lot of city council and public workshops. We had our main executive session workshop on July 21st. And then moved into September where we passed our preliminary tax levy. From there, you know, we adopted those preliminary enterprise fund budgets. And then, as many people who are listening probably know, you recently received your tax statements in the mail on your preliminary information in your truth and taxation statements, which provided you the date and the time for this meeting, as well as the opportunity to attend your county and or school district meetings as well to provide any input. So here we are on December 2nd for the public hearing and looking at adoption, and then from here moving forward into later December, we would submit our tax levy information to Sherburne County for collection next year, as well as Department of Revenue on their required reporting. So really an overview, as we prepare the budget, we're looking, you know, primarily on the, you know, starting off on the expense side, where everything fits into the uses, how we're providing service, what some of those key elements are of the budget. We are a people service-oriented business, so a lot of our expenses relate to people, but also have a lot of utilities and a lot of other pieces as well. And then once we're have our heads wrapped around the expense side, we're looking at revenues. You know, primary source of revenue is tax levy. We'll see some charts later which summarize kind of the breakout of those revenues, but also have some charges for services and some other agencies. We get some intergovernmental revenue that flows in as well. So on the general fund, on the expense side, really planned in detail. The general fund budget is planned to increase 1.3%, increasing from $7,478,561 up to $7,577,882. So you'll see there's a little bit of a mix in between some of the changes. You know, general government, public safety, some decreases. Public Works, Park and Rec, some increases. A reminder, Park and Recreation does include the community center. So That bucket has gotten bigger as we've transitioned the community center into the general fund. And the city does, face the same pressures as others, wage benefits. So really, on the benefit side, we're rolling in our best assumptions of what employees will select, and it's just kind of a snapshot in time. And then once we get into the year and open enrollment, things may change. So, yeah, so a really good snapshot, and for the most part, the general fund very consistent with prior year, but here, definitely focus more on the departments, but it's budgeted based on each of the line items and really some trend over time and understanding what goes into all those numbers. So looking at the breakout here really just gives you the nice little pie effect of where we're spending those general fund dollars. General government, which includes city council, admin, finance, professional services, planning, right around a quarter of the general fund, 24%. Public safety includes our police department, our fire contract with our joint powers, our fire relief pass-through comes through and then is paid out, and then as well as our building inspection, so around 30% there. And then public services, which is made up of public works and park and rec, so you got the 19%. And the 27. So that rounds out the general fund expense allocation. So really on the revenue side, as I mentioned, we dig into, some of those smaller revenue buckets, license and permits, some of the intergovernmental, charges for services within the general fund has grown as we've transitioned the community center over into the general fund, so that makes up a larger portion now as well. And then after we've evaluated each of those other portions of revenue, then we really look at what we need for a levy to kind of fill that remaining portion for operational needs as well as capital, and then our debt service needs as well. So we'll dig a little deeper into revenue and some of the breakouts. So here taxes make up about 80%. That's down from prior years as we have had more charges for services from the community center. Charges make up around 10%, so we're kind of diversifying that revenue mix. Intergovernmental makes up around 5%, licenses and permits around 3%, and then other revenue has grown as well as we've had some great interest earning returns as well. So as our community grows and our tax capacity mix changes, we would expect to see future, modifications of how this pie shakes out with where the revenue comes from. Some of our other governmental funds in the special revenue fund portion, we have the EDA. That budget decreased right around $31,000, down about 12%. In the past, we had looked at maximizing the EDA levy based on the statutory authority to levy under a special district for the EDA. Considering that the special district wasn't included in the transition aid calculation, we had talked about moving that EDA levy under just our general levy, which we did for pay 26. So looking at that, we didn't necessarily look at maximizing. We have some good reserves built up in EDA for some of the strategy that Jacob and his staff have, and that are available for some of the EDA goals that they're working on. So we really looked at what was necessary for EDA on an operational side, decreased to the 219, and feel comfortable with where we are with that. And especially transitioning over to part of the general levy. So speaking of your truth and taxation statements, if you look at that now, you'll see the special district, which is more lower. That decreased to 0 for pay 26 for the projection, and then that is now included within your main general fund. So the city just has the single line for the tax collections moving forward. And then Pebble Creek operations, very consistent with last year, just decreasing slightly. Activity continues to be strong, and once again, no proposed operating levy for 2026. So looking at the overall proposed levy, here, really focusing on general fund, really just people service heavy there. Increasing just the 2%. That does include a community center. I have a couple additional slides on transition aid where I'll dig a little deeper, but we did allocate $100,000 to offset the levy in '26. So a general fund levy of $6,031,864, an increase of 4.7%. And then the EDA levy decreasing from 233 down to 200, so 14%. So overall, our general operating levy increase of 4%. And then debt service, oops, as I clicked the wrong button here, excuse me. Debt service, that's made up, that's 1.499, that's made up of our 2021 debt service of around $950,000, and then the 2024 A lease revenue bonds of around $550,000. So that decreased slightly just based on our debt service levies that are out there. And then the capital levy increased 1.3%. And really, we'll look at the breakout of the capital levy, but really the focus is on streets and infrastructure, and really allows us to focus on that and be really ready to go at the beginning of the year and not really lean on any assessments to property owners, but really leveraging the ability to pay for all that with levied funds that are available. So an overall increase of 2.45%, up to $10,498,579 is proposed for 2026. So to touch on electric generation transition aid, this was new. We received our first installment earlier this year. So just some of the basics, just to lay the groundwork. The aid is available to jurisdictions with electric generating units retiring after 2016. So we did qualify. We did have a unit that was decommissioned. To be eligible, the tax capacity of the unit has to be greater than 4% of your total tax capacity. So we were over 60%, so we qualified there. And then really the aid calculation was your change in tax capacity times the tax rate within the prior year. So we had qualified for, I think our allotment was around $573,000 based on the calculations. And then that aid would decrease 5% each year and would be eliminated when total tax capacity recovered over 90%. So with that, our initial aid was certified on May 1st, the $573,000. Then fast forward, our aid was confirmed that it would be eliminated. Our tax capacity had only decreased 5%. So we had received aid for that 5% decrease, but then based on the statute, we were ineligible to receive future aid because our capacity had already, which is good, it had already recovered over the 90%. So that was good. So really for us, we had initially allocated $250,000 for the 25 budget because at the time we weren't really sure what we were going to receive. Receiving more was great. So we really looked at the impacts over the next couple of years. We allocated the $100,000 for 2026, and then as we progress into 2027, we can look at the remaining approximately $230,000, how we deploy that to offset some of those future. So in the end, it was eliminated year 2, but it's still it's still assisted during the transition. Our tax capacity is still strong. We're still continuing to evaluate and understand what's happening with tax capacity over there as future units are decommissioned. So more to come, and we'll keep council informed as we learn more. Just touch on existing debt profile. So at the end of 2025, we'll have $5.7 million of the street reconstruction bonds outstanding, and 5.8 of the 24 EDA lease revenue bonds. And then we have just under $800,000 of the wastewater revenue bonds that are currently paid by Liberty Paper. So that final payment will be made in February of 2026 and will be completed. So that gives you a feel for outstanding debt issuances over the next decade here. So looking really good for a city of our size with kind of debt to asset ratio. And we definitely have more capacity if things did come up that we did need to plan to bond for. Proposed capital levies just increased slightly up to $2.767 million. primarily related to Public Works and Streets. So Phil and Public Works staff have done a great job of catching up over the last few years. As you drive around town, you know, some of those streets that were looking pretty bad over the last few years have been fixed up, and are really planning for the future with using these levies to fix up additional. So really strategic there. And then some of the other levies, really just, you know, we put together a pretty detailed long-term plan and have a really good pulse of what that annual need is to really allow us to meet those needs over time without needing to assess. We get a lot of calls, you know, when we're repairing a street in front of somebody's house, and they're like, you know, how much is this gonna cost me? You know, they might have lived in a different community that did special assessments, and I mean, they have a really good response when you say, well, everybody's paying into the levy bucket so that, you know, we can have good roads, and support, the community as a whole. So it's a great story to tell. Capital project for levied funds, just a summary of some of the items that are coming up that, you know, I'm sure you're familiar with, that we've talked about. You know, the street refurbishments and reconstruction, some park and trail improvements and extensions. Public Works has done some phased building refurbishments. They have some additional items planned for next year. Golf course cart path restoration, I think we're in year 3 of that. Community center pool deck replacement, looking at kind of a padded surface up there on the pool deck. And then once again, a police squad. So some good stuff in the pipeline. 2026 tax capacity factors, so kind of laying the groundwork of, you know, we've looked at where the levy's at. Now let's look at, you know, really the key factor that drives tax rate, value and capacity. So Sherburne County Assessor sets the valuations. Board of Appeal was on April 10th, so really came and set the groundwork of where they're seeing values going. Taxable market value is that basis for levy application, and then once the class rate's applied, it gets you to a next net tax capacity of what your property could be taxed at. So for the 25 valuation for payable 26, you know, not all properties were created equal, but, you know, just kind of looking around the community and from some of the information from the Board of Appeal, you know, residential's in that 1 to 3. There are some outliers where they caught up, where it might be a little bit more. I did see some within the community that decreased slightly, but just kind of a range. Commercial, industrial, that was one where I kind of put a range there, 5 to 15, because that was across the board. You know, some of the smaller commercial industrial stayed pretty consistent. Some of our larger, you know, non-utility had some pretty hefty increases for pay 26. And then on the utility side, there was a 0.4% decrease. So you'll see how that impacts. I have a chart that shows the breakout. But overall, we had about a 4% increase based on Sherburne County's preliminary. So there'll be some slight adjustments, but I would expect it to stay very close to the 4%. So determining the city's tax capacity rate, so total taxes to be generated by the levy, the $10,498,000 up to 2.45%. Tax capacity of $21,301,773. So taxes to be generated divided by tax capacity gives you your tax rate. So 2026 tax rate estimated at 49.285, a decrease from 50.071. So that's the tax rate that would have been included in the TNT notices that went out to the public. Here's a nice trend over time: tax capacity, tax levy, and tax rate trend. So really looking at you know, kind of that lazy river. You don't want any spikes. You know, big up, big down. So tax capacity, you know, it had grown through 24. We had that slight bump in 25 with the decommissioning of Unit 2. And then we did see that bump up this year for 2026 as well. You'll see in the blue you have your tax levy, so that has increased slightly, you know, with some of the pressures on the budgets. But really happy to see that tax rate. You know, it's within very close to last year. See a nice trend and is definitely in line with some of our projections. There's a lot of variables that are going into some of the decommissioning and things, and a lot of our long-term plans that we're walking through, it's in line with what we're seeing there as well. Here's a tax capacity breakout that I'd mentioned. As I'm looking at it seems a little small over there on the big screen, but I'll just mention here, it's really just a trend. So the dark blue is the utility. That's mainly Circle 1, 2, and 3. As you can see, that's making up a smaller portion of total tax capacity. The orange is residential, and then the green is commercial, industrial, and kind of all the others. So, over the last 4 or 5 years, as the utility decreases in size of tax capacity, there's other users that are paying a larger portion of that pie. And we expected this trend, but it's good just to keep our eye on what that mix is, especially as we're approaching a second decommissioning in a couple years from now. We'll continue to monitor that. So what does that mean for the average resident? So for the average resident with no change in tax capacity, they would see a 1.6% decrease in the city's portion of their taxes. If there would be increases in their taxable value, then their tax bill would change proportionately from there. So this gives you a snapshot of there. Really a reminder, the homestead credit exclusion did change for 2025, so this is our second year of seeing that. So that did at least increase the values for the homestead exclusion, which was good to see that they finally made the change. But so really, I think I have a breakout on the subsequent slide as well that shows kind of the impact from there. So the city tax impact, the goal of this chart is just to show a combination of the impact to each of our kind of separate buckets, as well as how much they make of our overall tax levy. So for a residential homeowner, $450,000 home with no value change, their bill would decrease, or tax bill would decrease right around $35, and they make up about 0.021% of the total tax levy. A commercial business valued around $7.5 million that had a 10% increase in value, they would go up about 8.3%, and they make up less than 1%, about 0.77% of the total levy. And then for the utility state assessed, so this is really NSP, Northern States Power, and then Southern Municipal, really units 1, 2, and 3, their value decreased 2.0%. So they decreased about $129,000. And they make up around 60% of the total levy. So right in line with those changes in tax capacities, we see that change in the tax levy. And then here, how are your residential taxes used? So for an average, or for for this visual, we picked a market value residence of around $350,000. For that residence, the annual amount would be around $651. Or a monthly amount of about $138. So on a monthly basis, just shy of $20 would go towards the debt service levy. So that's the large street construction project as well as City Hall. The capital improvement levy, so that's funding our streets and then all the other buckets of capital. And then the general operating levy, which would cover everything from general government to our public safety, public works, and our park system, would be just less than $82 per month for those city services. All right, so that wraps up the governmental piece. Now I'll just touch on the enterprise funds. We have a water and sewer utility, and they're not only capital intensive, but also critical services. So really important to make sure those are operating efficiently and effectively. As you can see from some of Chris's recent RCAs, a lot of repair and maintenance over there with the facility that is getting older. So really just want to make sure we have safe, reliable water and sewer services. Really, governs the decisions that Chris and his staff are making. And then each of the water and sewer funds really need to be self-supporting enterprise funds. And really the rates that users are paying are supporting both operations and then those future capital needs. There could be an opportunity where we would have to bond for larger projects and then pay debt service over time. But really wrapping all of those decisions into those rate studies is important to understand what the cash needs are and what the future capital and operating needs are as well. So with that, proposing for rate changes that were included in the fee schedule that Susan had proposed this evening, 2% rate increase on water usage and a 3% increase on the base service charge for water. And then for domestic sewer, we propose a 5% rate increase on base domestic sewer usage charges and Tier 2 domestic sewer usage charges as well. So really, these are baseline. These correspond right with the rate study that we had completed in 2024. So I'll just touch on the water budget real quick. Revenues decreasing 6.4%, operating expenses up 1.1. Really, the budget reflects a small addition to reserves in '26 and is really within the parameters of our cash flow needs. So as part of the rate study, we really look at the cash flow needs and the cash reserve balances, making sure that we have enough cash in the bank to support the capital needs, as well as having enough that would support, say a issue until the next receipt of utility payments, making sure there's enough reserve there. So for 2025, the first 6,000 gallons per month costs $2.92 per thousand, or you could receive 342 gallons of water for $1. For 2026, the first 6,000 gallons per month costs $2.97 per thousand gallons, and you could receive 337 gallons for $1. So it kind of gives you a baseline of the changes from year to year. And then on the domestic sewer budget, here revenues increasing 5.3%, operating expenses fairly consistent. And here some addition to reserves in 2026 and within the parameters of our cash flow needs within the current rate study. So here, interesting to note, it does cost more to safely dispose of a gallon of domestic wastewater than it does to provide that same gallon of water. So 107 gallons can be treated for $1, so about a third of the water side. Here just gives you a quick snapshot of the residential water sewer impact. A minimal user, really around like 1,000 gallons of water, 2,000 sewer, would expect an annual impact of around $13.44, monthly impact of $1.12. The average monthly utility user who uses around 6,000 gallons of water would expect a $3.04 monthly impact or an annual impact of $36.53. So it gives you a snapshot of the impacts of those proposed rate changes. And then on the industrial side, here really LPI is our main user on the industrial side, or our only user. Revenues expected to increase 5.2%. Operating expenses planned for 4.1%. We are, 10 years into that agreement. We're nearing the end with that last debt service payment. Here, we're really looking at the operational side. So I think Lori and Lori's done a great job working with Chris, working with LPI, and identifying what the operational needs are, as well as the capital side. So this does include some usage rates, really getting granular of what their expectations are. Tier 1 rates would go from $3.95 up to $4.07 in July to match their fiscal year. And then really we do have the capital reserves that are set up that are available for the planned capital within industrial sewer as well. So the utility or enterprise fund planned some of the projects over there for water, pump house refurbishment, pump replacement, well exploration, which is already in play. Industrial sewer has some roofing, which partners a lot with domestic sewer, a biofilter blower, and then domestic sewer has a lift station refurbishment and some pump replacements. All right, so with that, kind of wraps up my presentation. Any budget questions from the public can be directed to myself at 763-200-4250 or my email. Property value questions can be directed directly to the county assessor at 763-765-4900. And then a reminder, the Board of Appeal and Equalization is held in April. So as you get your notice in early '26, and you have questions about your values, that would be a good opportunity to voice any concerns that you have over those values as well. And that's all I have for my presentation. Can field any questions from the public and or council.
Do any citizens have any questions for Mr. Ebensteiner?
They're as talkative as we are.
Right? Any council members have questions? All right,
We pretty much discussed it all summer.
correct. So I guess we'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Mike, second by Robin. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, state no. Public hearing's closed. So we're looking for motion on resolution 25-108, which is the 2026 governmental fund budgets and levies.
Make a motion to adopt the final government fund budget and levy for City of Becker, taxes payable 2026, resolution 25-108.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Rick, second by Becky. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, state no. That motion carries. Now we're looking for a motion on resolution 25-109 for the enterprise fund budgets.
I'll make that motion as well.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Rick, second by Robin. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, state no. That motion carries. Just a note to all staff, department heads, thank you. I think this is a very responsible budget. If you compare, our 2.45%, we're doing a lot for people and we're just taking what we need. I'm very impressed and appreciative of all the work that everybody put into it. I know that's a lot of work. As Mike said, we've been working on it for months, so make sure you pass that along to all staff that we appreciate that.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you, council, as well, for being so engaged, and appreciate all your time and commitment to the budget process.
All right. Anybody want to speak up now with anything else, or we'll entertain a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion by Mike, seconded by Rick. All in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, state no. Meeting's adjourned at 6:32. Have a great night, everybody.